Okay, good afternoon. I'm here again with Mr. Sharp, Jon Sharp of Silver Shemmings Ash, and we're talking about the latest update to the COVID-19 response for insurers. So good afternoon, Jon.
Good afternoon, Julie. I'll speak as loud as I can because if there is some background noise, I'm in Scotland and that's the rain hammering down on the top of the conservatory roof.
That's a real sea change in the weather that you've been experiencing recently.
It is indeed, it is indeed.
Okay, so in your last talking head, you said that the FCA were talking about a test case in respect of business interruption insurance. Has this happened now?
Well, yes, there has been. The FCA, as I think I said in the last talking head, are a regulator with teeth. This is not your tame water regulator who slaps the water companies on the wrist and says, "Oh, pay that man £50." This is a regulator with real teeth, monitors and watches carefully all of its regulated bodies and what they do, and that primarily is the banking and insurance sector. I think its record banking fine was 39 billion, and it watches the insurance sector very carefully as well. It has very wide powers now. It can bring its own Proceeds of Crime Act prosecutions without the need for police involvement. So this is a serious regulator. This is not one to be messed with. Now, it's been concerned for some time about these cases, and it has now decided, in conjunction with insurers, which I'll come on to bring a test case before the commercial court in London to decide whether these policies should be responding to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, and the agreement's main points, Jon?
Well, I think, Julie, you can put up a link, can't you, to the agreement, which I'd recommend that people do review. But shortly, I won't go into it in too much detail. It's not as long as I thought, though, to be honest. It's only about 15 pages. But let me just give you some of the highlights from it. In terms of the background to it, the FCA quite rightly say, as a conduct regulator of insurers in the United Kingdom, it's been considering many of these business interruption policies. In the market is concerned that there is a significant number of policies. There are at least 75, maybe more, of these types of policies, where there is uncertainty created by differences of opinion expressed by interested parties as to whether the terms of the policies require that claims in respect of some or all of the business interruption losses are paid. So it's aware that a number of bodies have said they are going to challenge insurers' decision, where basically they say COVID-19's got nothing to do with us, especially in relation to these business interruption clauses. Again, I won't go over old ground. A lot of people are very angry with this because business interruption of this type that contain notifiable disease clauses was an extra, it was an add-on. So you paid extra premium for it, therefore people are very cross that it hasn't responded. It goes on, this is an agreement, by the way, between the FCA and certain insurance companies, and they're looking at 17 of those insurance companies. The FCA go on, well, the insurers have also been helpful and cooperative, confirms the FCA their views that certain policies which they underwrite and which provide cover in principle for business interruption losses without the need for physical property damage may not cover losses resulting from COVID-19 pandemic. So it's not very good for insurers. I don't want anyone to think I'm insurance bashing. I'm not here, because the insurance companies don't know whether these policies are going to be, or so the courts are going to order that they respond to them or not. So at the moment, it's sort of having to make huge reserves, and it needs to know as well which policies the courts are going to say, look, you need to pay out on that one, you don't need to pay out on that one, so that it can keep it can then have a better idea as to what reserves it needs to maintain. But anyway, as I said, this is a cooperative document. It goes on to discuss the mutual objectives of taking these cases to court. And again, it's to achieve the maximum clarity possible for the maximum number of policyholders and their insurers, consistent with the need for expedition and proportionality. It is recognised that not all issues that may arise between individual policyholders and insurers can be resolved if the objective of resolving the disputed issues, at least at first court level, is to be achieved as soon as possible. So it's not saying it is going to solve every problem, but it's going to try and solve as many as it possibly can by taking these cases to court. So how's it going to do? Well, just one point. It also sets out the issues to be identified. And they're going to do this by what's called an assumed facts scenario. So they're making this application under CPR, what's called Part 7. And what Part 7 does is it's a simplified procedure. So you can apply to the court with an agreed set of facts and say, court, here's the facts. Can you please interpret the insurance policy in the background of these facts? You could equally use it if two companies are at loggerheads for years, they have a mediation, they agree everything, but there's one point they couldn't agree on. Again, they could go to court and say, look, we've agreed everything else. These are the facts. We can't agree about this clause in the contract. Court, can you make a ruling? So it's a very useful procedure, and that's what's being used here. So how will the assumed facts be decided? Well, the assumed facts will be an appropriate set of illustrative factual assumptions, such as, by way of example only, the nature of the affected businesses, how the businesses were affected, whether the affected business closed entirely or partially, whether that was before or after steps referred to in paragraph 1.2 of this agreement, and the possible impact of other measures by the UK government or any other relevant public authority in relation to COVID-19. So they're going to go to the court saying, we've agreed these facts, or as many of them as we can, and if they can't agree all of the facts with insurers, what they're going to do is, should full agreement not be possible with all insurers on all agreed facts, the FCA will present all the agreed facts that have been agreed with all insurers, and for the remaining agreed facts, the agreed facts in relation to the majority of insurers, so as to further the mutual objective of getting clarity in this. I should say that the FCA's two big points are treating customer fairly and clarity. So that's why they're doing this. It also sets out the process in some detail as to how they are going to arrive at these assumed facts. But shortly, eventually, at the end of the day, you will have a set of assumed facts, these insurance policies, and the courts then have to decide whether they should be responding to the agreed set of facts. Now, of course, the reason people are very angry with this is that lots of businesses are struggling. And even if they only had a relatively modest claim, they would still like that paid now. At the moment, they're getting no payments. So I think this is going to be a very useful exercise, even though it may not be absolutely perfect.
Okay, so John, when do you think there will be a definitive answer? If there is
well, the timetable, Julie, you're quite right to ask this, because clearly it's important to businesses that are struggling. The timetable is set out in the document. And basically by the 9th of June, so yesterday, the FCA are going to issue a claim form in the commercial court. And then there's a procedure for underwriters putting in their defence to that claim form. And then there will be a reply from the FCA. And that date for that is currently fixed at the 3rd of July 2020. Now, in the background, as soon as this agreement was effectively signed, liaison took place with the commercial court to say, look, we're going to need 5 to 10 days of court time. How soon can you fit us in? So it's likely that within the first part of July, these cases will be heard. Now, the commercial court judges are amongst the best judges we have in this country. They're exceptionally intelligent, exceptionally bright, and have a good knowledge of how business runs on a day-to-day basis. So, but even having said that, I still can't think I think it's going to take 14 days afterwards before we get a judgment. So that's going to take us to the end of July. Now, within the document, there is then, of course, as you'd probably expect, the right of both parties to appeal. And I suspect they may leapfrog the Court of Appeal and go straight to the Supreme Court or House of Lords. But again, you've got to get court time. And I would have thought, even if it's expedited, you're not going to get that on much before middle of September. And then you've probably still got to allow on top of that another 2 weeks for judgment to be out. So we're probably looking, I would have thought, late September, early October, before we have a definitive court ruling on this. So I'm afraid it's still not going to be quick. This is not going to be done overnight. And I think that timetable for getting some resolution to it is probably a realistic one, I'm afraid.
Okay, so so nothing imminent then.
Nothing, I'm afraid, imminent, no.
Okay. Are there, in your opinion, any concerns?
I've got some tiny concerns, I suppose. First one is the FCA have expressed a view before in a market letter back in April that they're not 100% convinced that business interruption policies covered COVID-19. Now, clearly, in some cases, they are right. If you just bought basic cover, so you said to your broker, look, I just want the basic cover for my business, it's probably unlikely you would have had this in there. But if you've said to your broker, I want the very best cover that we can possibly obtain, there will undoubtedly be notifiable disease extensions in there. Now, maybe that's what they were alluding to, but I hope I'm wrong when I think they're not 100% convinced that there is cover, because I want them to argue the case as if it was a policy, as if they were policy holders. That brings me on to a second point. I'm surprised that there aren't some representation from policy holders themselves. Wouldn't it need to be a huge body, maybe just 2 or 3, who could make submissions to the court to say, look, this is how it has affected our business. This is the real impact that it's had on us. This is what we thought we were buying. And that's not there. And I'm slightly surprised about that. Now, clearly there is the question of cost, but I would have thought that the FCA might have said, we'll cover those costs, because it really would be only putting submissions into the court for maybe 2 days, so not a huge amount. Also, I'm slightly surprised that there's no representatives from the broking community either. They were the ones that bought the policies and on behalf of their clients. And I'm surprised that they aren't there, haven't been asked what their opinion is on whether or not these policies should be responding. So just 1 or 2 things that I'm not absolutely 100% happy with. But don't get me wrong, this will provide some much needed clarity to this area, even though it's not necessarily going to be quick. So there we are. I mean, as I said, I wish it could be quicker.
But,
so,
you know, at least it's happening.
At least it's happening. At least we're taking things forward. And the FCA need to be congratulated. They've realised there's a problem and they're doing something about it, which hopefully in the long run will save a lot of people a lot of money in legal fees.
Okay.
So that's about it, Julie. That's really all I had to say.
Okay, that's great. We are seeing you again end of the month. I think it's 25th of June. The RC Expert panel, where you'll be appearing with someone from construction, talking about contracts, insurance generally. And I think you're also up on the 17th of June, talking about insurance and the JCT contract. So
yes, am I? Well, we can liaise about that later, Julie.
We can indeed.
All right, well, thanks very much as always, Julie.
No problem. Thanks very much for your time, John. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.